Order. I call upon the Right Honourable Prime Minister to address the joint session.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Speaker of the Senate, Speaker of the House of Commons, dear colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We have the immense privilege today to welcome the President of Ukraine, Viktor Yushchenko, to this joint session of Parliament.
All Canadians, thank you for accepting our invitation to speak to us here in this great symbol of our democracy, and welcome to Canada. Mr. President, this may be a historic day, but it has been a long time coming. Many Ukrainians have preceded you here. Roughly 100 years ago, there began the mass migration of tens of thousands of your countrymen and women to Canada. The men in sheepskin coats, they were called. They were hardy, hard-working, and hopeful people who saw in our young and largely untouched country a land of great opportunity. Many were attracted to the vast open grasslands of the Canadian prairies, which, while unsheltered from the harsher elements, reminded them of the steppes back home. We often now forget how difficult those pioneering days really were. Many of these settlers endured terrible hardships, but they prevailed and built the farms, families, and fraternities that were vital to the social and economic development of rural Western Canada. Aujourd'hui,
today, more than 1 million people of Ukrainian origin consider Canada their country.
Our former Governor General, Ray Natishin, a great number of my parliamentary colleagues from both chambers and all parties, many of whom, of course, are here today, famed Canadian astronaut Roberta Bonder, the great painter William Kurelik, the late Supreme Court Justice John Sapinka, and more great NHL hockey players than I could possibly name. En fait, les Canadiens
Indeed, Canadians of Ukrainian origin have made their mark in all parts of Canada and in all sectors. And our country is very fortunate that so many chose to come to Canada.
For all that Ukrainians had achieved in this country, when I was a boy, there remained a certain sadness in the Ukrainian-Canadian community. Because despite sharing with us the opportunity and prosperity that freedom and democracy had brought them here, Ukrainian Canadians understood that the bondage and repression of their ancestral land remained as strong as ever before. And indeed, I think some doubted whether that would ever change. But change it did. And in 1991, when it finally broke free of Soviet tyranny, it was Prime Minister Mulroney and the Government of Canada that stood first among the great democracies of the West to recognize the independence of Ukraine.
Nous avons alors célébré la liberté. We celebrated the liberation and liberty of Ukraine, and we have supported its efforts to support democracy, human rights, and the rule of law, and we do so to this day.
Those who would turn back the clock in Ukraine tried to stop the Orange Revolution. All the parties of both houses of this Parliament and all the people of this nation joined with your countrymen and with your courageous leadership to say, never again will Ukraine lose her freedom. Il faut du temps.
It takes time after decades of Soviet occupation to develop democratic institutions and the spirit of a free people, but progress has been accomplished and the world bears witness to it. I want to congratulate you, Mr. President, for Ukraine's accession to the World Trade Organization. There were challenges, and there will be more, but it's clear that Ukraine is headed to a better future for its people.
The Government of Canada strongly supported Ukraine's request to join NATO's Membership Action Plan at the Bucharest Summit this year. This is, we understand, part of your design to see Ukraine embrace the transatlantic community and our shared democratic and free market values. Plus encore, l'Ukraine.
Further, Ukraine has always shown its commitment to NATO.
Mission in Kosovo and is supporting a provincial reconstruction team in Afghanistan. In fact, Ukraine is the only non-NATO country supporting every NATO mission in some way or other. It is for these and many reasons that Canada called upon our partners to endorse Ukraine's eventual membership in NATO, and perhaps even more importantly, to understand that the decision to seek alliance with others is a decision for and only for the sovereign nation of Ukraine itself. If any further reason was needed to justify Ukraine's welcome into the Western Security Partnership, it can be found in the darkest chapter of the country's history. Cette année, bien entendu, marque.
This year, they celebrate the anniversary.
And being now debated in this Parliament would provide legal recognition to what happened in Ukraine under the brutal communist dictatorship of Joseph Stalin. That's why in communities all across Canada, events are taking place to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the Holodomor. And that's why Canada co-sponsored the government of Ukraine's motion at UNESCO, honoring the millions who perished in the terrible famine orchestrated by Stalin in the pursuit of his evil ideology. Au Canada, nous n'avons pas peur.
In Canada, we aren't afraid of history or of truth. And this is why our government recognized the injustice to Ukrainians who were interned during the First World War. This month, we announced a subsidy for the Ukrainian foundation, the Taras Shevchenko Foundation, and we recognize the historical importance of this regrettable part of our history.
Repeat its mistakes. Nor will we forget its bonds, the shared values and aspirations between our two countries, built and embodied most clearly by Ukrainian Canadians themselves. And on these we will continue to build our friendship and solidarity long into the future. J'ai maintenant l'immense plaisir.
I now have the immense pleasure of introducing a man who incarnates not only friendship but our common values of democracy and freedom?
Viktor Yushchenko.
Your Excellency, Mr. Prime Minister, Your Excellency, Madam Chief of Justice, Honorable Senators, Your Excellency, Excellencies, members of House of Commons, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank you for your kind invitation to speak out today at this honorary meeting. This is a great honor for me to speak out today at the Parliament of Canada. Right now, I'm filled with very tender feelings to your country and to this land. For me, as for millions of Ukrainians, this country and this land is sacred. And this is due to many reasons, which I will be speaking about. I arrived here to say the words of gratitude to the land of Canada for it became a motherland for millions of Ukrainians, for many generations of my native people who in different times came to seek for their destiny here in Canada. We are very grateful for the support that our country has always felt from Canada. For us, it was of great importance that Canada was the first country out of all the countries of the West recognized Ukraine's independence. Every Ukrainian will always remember about it. This decision was the first step to our close partnership in the new age. We highly appreciate our modern relations that have exceptional trace, the trace of brotherhood. In my speech, I would like to introduce today's Ukraine and our vision of its future, as well as share our opinions regarding the progress and the prospects for our relations. Thus, I'd like to say that probably the most important thing that Ukraine is the country of full democracy. The leading international organizations recognize Ukraine as a free democratic state. This conclusion included such key aspects as election processes, freedom and freedom of speech and freedom of press, rights and freedoms for humans. That was the time when our old dreams about strengthening our statehood, and that was the reason for immense changes. The breaking point for that was the Orange Revolution in 2004. It witnessed maturity of the Ukrainian nation that in critical times stood for its independence, stood for the fundamental human rights and freedoms. The Orange Revolution awoke the society and made irreversible positive changes in human minds. Ukrainians believed in their own strengths, in their ability to stand their rights, to stand for their own destiny. We are very grateful to the international community for impartial attitude to those important days for Ukraine. I would like to express my biggest gratitude to Canada that sent the most numerous number, the biggest number of international observers in the course of those dramatic elections of 2004. The development pace that required centuries for many countries is covered by several years by us. And here we're facing many challenges and, of course, certain obstacles. However, the recent years have shown that the most complicated problems and challenges, including the social problems, we resolve them in a very democratic and civilized way. We're speaking frankly about our problems. We need to improve the public administration in our country to settle all the disparities in the system of relations between the three fundamental power institutions. We have to determine their responsibilities and authorities, and that's what we are working on. This is our key target and content of the constitutional reform that we are working on now. That way, we will provide long-lasting political stability essential for the future progress of the country. As the President, as the head of state, I initiate different measures to combat corruption. Of course, this is a big problem for our country, but I'd like to say that this problem is not a problem of the last year or of the last 3 years. This problem was not brought in by the Orange Revolution. Unfortunately, this is a very heavy heritage that we inherited from the previous system. That's why the President today introduced 6 draft laws on fighting corruption, and they are now in the Parliament. Last year, they already passed the first reading, and I'm sure that in the nearest future we will finalize the enhancement of Ukraine's legislation on fighting corruption. We also plan to reform the entire system and sector of national security. Very important changes will happen to the system of justice. These are the tasks that I put as priorities in front of the government. And I'd like to say that you should not have any doubts that could put our democratic course under threat. I will do everything possible for no political ambition to stop our democratic pace. My word is clear and affirming. Our movement will obviously give very productive results, and this will be a very important message to all the democratic forces in Ukraine, and this is my goal this is the goal of every my step and everything I do. Dear friends, I would like to now speak about several aspects that characterize practical accomplishments and prospects for a country. For several years already, we are marking out stable economic evolution and stable economic development in our country. For the last 3 years, the GDP growth has been estimated at 7.8% annually. Only last year, GDP grew at 6.7%, and this is the high evolution level that we are keeping up every year. Incomes with the population are growing as well. Every single year after the Orange Revolution, the incomes of the population grow 30% every year. The foreign direct investment has increased immensely. The investment that came to the Ukrainian economy for the last 3 years constitute 80% of the total investment that Ukraine managed to acquire in the course of its independence. When I was the chief of the central bank, I had only one dream, so that investment to Ukraine could reach the level of those in Poland. And Poland at that time received around $4.5 up to $5 billion annually. Starting from 2005, the Ukrainian economy receives from $7.5 to $8 billion of foreign direct investment. I'm sure this is the manifestation that the Ukrainian government managed to find the right formula in the dialogue, which is very important. I mean, the dialogue with the businesses, because a lot has been done to create fruitful conditions and favorable conditions which would be attractive for businesses. Taking advantage of this opportunity, I would like to invite all Canadian investors to be more active in the Ukrainian market. We have the whole number of big and even international occasions. One of them is hosting of Euro 2012 Football Championship final in Ukraine. Only within this project, within this event, we plan to invest into sporting and tourist infrastructure, Ukrainian roads, hotels, and the total cost of the project is $25 billion US. The investment into roads will be $10 billion. This is a big challenge for us. This is the first time in the European football history that is respected all over the world. The final cup will be hosted in the Eastern Europe. And I'm sure that this is a big responsibility for the executive committee of UFA, and this is a colossal honor for my own country. This is a great examination. And I clearly understand that the final cup would be a lot easier to be hosted in Spain or Italy or somewhere else because they have ready-made infrastructures. But I'm sure that this is a genuine policy to the East when we have to get out of the traditional framework and traditional system of coordinates. I was present at that very important decision, and I'm very grateful to all the friends from UFA who took that positive decision for Ukraine. And once again, I want to remind everybody, I'm speaking about Canadian investors now. I want them to more actively come to our potentials, because our potentials are very promising and strong. It triggers positive changes in different spheres of our life. On the 16th of May, Ukraine became a valid member of WTO, and therefore today the Ukrainian system is equal within planetary economic competition. This will open new prospects to enhance our foreign economic activities and broad integration of our economy into the global space. Second thing, which is also very important, Ukraine has firmly chosen its course for full integration to European and Euro-Atlantic structures. This pace is the basic pace in which is proven by our national legislation, and all the corresponding laws have already been approved. It worked out the logic of the internal reform, how to attain the values that the Ukrainian society wants to confess. Ukraine's accession to the European Union is our main target. and it's written in the middle term reform. This is the foundation of our strategy. We want to approach this membership through political association and economic integration. Today we're working on fixing that formula in the new enhanced agreement of Ukraine with the European Union. On the 17th of February, we started official negotiations with the European Union on establishing a free trade area between Ukraine and the European Union. In future, we expect to create such free trade areas with our key partners, with our remarkable partners, and primarily I would like to say about Canada. And we've already spoken about that with His Excellency Mr. Prime Minister, and we paid considerable amount of time to that very matter. I also expect that one of the main constituents of the integration process will be in the single energy space, which will make us closer to Europe. I'd like to say that Ukraine already signed a memorandum on harmonization of the Ukrainian energy system with the European energy system. This and other steps are considered to be a direct integration of the Ukrainian economy to the European economic space. With that, together with Lithuania, Poland, Azerbaijan, and Georgia, Ukraine initiated a Baltic, the Black Sea, and the Caspian Sea energy transiting space founded on clear and transparent rules for everyone. Our main target is to introduce Ukraine's capabilities, especially energy transiting capabilities, and Ukraine possesses one of the biggest chain of oil and natural gas transportation routes. Our goal is to integrate these routes along with the entire transiting potential of Ukraine into the common European energy market. This is a brilliant initiative that has been put down in the declaration of the Kyiv Energy Summit on the 23rd of May, and the initiative goes in line with the common European energy strategy. This is our contribution to building the common European market. We also appreciate the results of the recent summit in Bucharest, which affirmed Ukraine's prospect for membership in NATO. We hope that already in December this year we will join the membership action plan for NATO. I want to point out, when speaking about European aspirations in Ukraine, this is the policy that is not aimed at forming any plans against somebody. Not a single challenge that could be not very comfortable for anyone with Ukraine's accession to NATO is not appropriate. We are only governed by the national interest of the state. In order to understand why Ukraine's position is such insisting and such is so insisting on EU and NATO membership, it's worth recalling our history, at least of the 20th century. Just pay attention to the fact that for the last 90 years, Ukraine has declared its independence 6 times, starting from Hetman Skoropadsky in 1918. Hetman only managed to make country's sovereignty for a little more than 6 months, and the same thing happened to the independences of Ukrainian People's Republic and Western Ukrainian People's Republic. I don't want this range of historic tragedies to be repeated in today's history of Ukraine. The only non-alternative decision and solution to make Ukraine eternal is Ukraine's accession to the system of collective security. This will apparently be the first time in our history when Ukraine's sovereignty will be approved by almost 30 countries in the world. Therefore, when we're speaking about Ukraine's NATO membership, we're speaking about genuine Ukrainian sovereignty. This is the reason why such a strong and incisive policy is being carried out by the Ukrainian government. In this very context, Mr. Prime Minister, I would like to thank you very much for that position that you expressed during the Bucharest summit. It was a proven, clear opinion of a country that fully supports this very pace of my country. Thank you. In my opinion, this is one of the examples how very firm approvals of our partnership between our two countries is manifested. Of course, a very important supporting pillar for this cooperation is about 1 million Ukrainian Canadians who've become an invaluable part of Canadian society. I'm very grateful to Canada for their support of our Ukrainian community and their spiritual and cultural needs. As a very good indication of our friendship, we are grateful to Canada that it commemorates about 10 million innocent victims of the Great Famine in Ukraine in 1932-1933. I would like to express my biggest gratitude to Canadian Senate that approved a resolution that calls the Canadian government to recognize the Holodomor in Ukraine as an act of genocide against the Ukrainian nation caused by Stalin's regime. That happened in 2003. I'm sure and I'm confident, ladies and gentlemen, that this address will be supported by the House of Commons of the Canadian Parliament. Taking advantage of this opportunity, I would like to thank to the Sejm of Latvia and its chairman, who's present today in this room, for the recognition at the beginning of 2008. They recognized the Holodomor in Ukraine as an act of genocide against the Ukrainian nation. The partnership between Ukraine and Canada has considerable advantages, and the impetus is felt in many cases. We are united by a clear political position on many challenges of the international life. We can feel the efficiency of our partnership in recovering from Chernobyl catastrophe, and Ukraine will always remember the invaluable support provided by Canada to Ukraine to recover after Chernobyl's tragedy. Being solidary partners in promoting democracy in the world and we are actively acting and cooperating in international missions on supporting peace and stability throughout the world. An invariable and very important part of our partnership is the cooperation between the parliamentarians of our countries. I welcome the activities by the Ukrainian and Canadian interparliamentary group, and I'm sure that it will further on make very many contributions to strengthening relations between our countries. Your Excellencies, the key target of my visit to Canada is to give more impetus to our cooperation, and we are ready to act very efficiently in a systematic way. I'm calling our Canadian friends and partners to close this cooperation, to accomplish it with new ideas throughout the whole spectrum, starting from the nuclear energy to participation in the projects related to Euro 2012 Cup that will be hosted in Ukraine. Dear friends, we highly appreciate our friendship and we believe in it. I want to thank Canada for its support. I want to thank your nation, your people, for all the warm and dear feelings addressed to the Ukrainian hearts. From the heart of Ukraine to the heart of Canada, I want to state the words of gratitude and respect. We are going forward, and we want to go forward together as true and frank and dear friends. Thank you for your attention. God bless Ukraine and God bless Canada.
Mr. Speaker, Your Excellency, President Yushchenko, Prime Minister, Chief Justice, Honorable Senators and members of the House of Commons, Mesdames et Messieurs. Au nom de tous les
On behalf of all parliamentarians and all of us here today, I have the honor, Your Excellency, to thank you for your presence and your address to this joint session of Canada's Parliament. Your clear and eloquent speech underlines that, Mr. President, you are here among friends.
All present at today's joint session of the House of Commons and Senate of Canada have listened carefully to your important address, and we thank you for sharing your analysis with us. We have taken note of your insight on today's Ukraine, including the reform process which you have underlined and have underway, economic development, significant new investment, and the building of the infrastructure, including that associated with the hosting of the World Cup. We take note of your insight associated with your work on the Euro-Atlantic integration, together with the single energy system, and of course, NATO. Mr. President, Your assessment of the special relation existing between the people of the Ukraine and Canada is especially appreciated. As you have indicated, the bonds which unite our peoples are deep and distinct. You have reminded us that we share the values of democracy, human rights, the rule of law, and the growth of peace throughout the world. Indeed, our people-to-people relation is a part of a very special common heritage to which you, Your Excellency, have alluded. St. Andrew the Apostle, patron saint of the Ukraine, prophesied in the year 55 AD that a great people would build a successful civilization along the banks of the Dnipro River. He might well have predicted the contributions of these same people who settle along the banks of the Saskatchewan River and in other places of Canada. And so it is, Mr. President, that the people of the Ukraine and Canada share in the patronage of the great apostle whose distinctive diagonal cross is particularly well known in the province of Nova Scotia. I might also add that your patron, St. Andrew, is situated in high relief above the Speaker's chair in the Senate chamber. Encore une fois, Monsieur le Président.
Once again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you for your address
Today and for your thoughtful, excellent address. As you continue your leadership and stewardship of the Ukraine, we wish you Godspeed.
President Yushchenko, Mr. Prime Minister, Madam Chief Justice, Mr. Speaker, honorable senators, honorable members, Mesdames et Messieurs. Monsieur le Président,
President Yushchenko, on behalf of the members of the House of Commons and of all of us here in the chamber, I would like to welcome you and thank you for having addressed us today.
Canadians have watched with hope and admiration as your nation has, under your stewardship, taken its destiny into its own hands with impressive results. You yourself have called Ukraine's independence the nation's greatest creation and affirmed that freedom is the alpha and omega of democracy. I believe all Canadians would share that view. Indeed, you've always had an ambitious vision for Ukraine, and since your election as President in December 2004, you have worked diligently to make that vision a reality, to create new jobs, encourage economic growth, make quality education and medical care accessible, and secure the rights of your people, to name only a few of your initiatives. Coming from a family of teachers, it's not surprising that you have made learning and advancement the main priorities for Ukraine and its people. It's also not surprising that the former President of Poland, Aleksander Kwasniewski, once said of you, and I quote, "He has strengthened people's faith in the power of civil society, both in his own country and around the world." End of the quote.
And Ukraine is proving to be a real success story whose achievements are many and varied. Your country has a rapidly growing economy and has just become a full member of the World Trade Organization.
In the last 15 years, it has become an active participant in scientific space exploration and remote sensing missions, as well as continuing to design spacecraft. But Ukraine is not merely looking inward. It is an active and concerned member of the international community, playing an increasingly larger role in peacekeeping operations throughout the world. I congratulate you on the World Cup event as well, another major international event. Mr. President, I trust that you know that you're among friends here, and indeed I hope that you consider Canada your home away from home, given that our country has more than 1.2 million persons of Ukrainian descent, the world's third largest Ukrainian population behind Ukraine and Russia. Many of them settled in Western Canada and brought with them their language and culture, which continues to thrive here. And I'm sure I'm not sure why it is so, but perhaps it is the influence of the wide open spaces in the West. But you will find the world's largest pasanka, or painted Easter egg, pierogi, and kubasa, all in the province of Alberta. Perhaps you might someday return to Canada for a holiday. I understand that you are an avid mountain climber, even scaling the heights of Ukraine's highest mountain not once or twice, but once every year. And so we can certainly offer you some mountaineering challenges, and for those quieter times you can put your well-known painting skills to good use by capturing some of Canada's natural attractions on a board. Mr. President, on behalf of all of us here, and indeed on behalf of all Canadians, I thank you for honoring us with your visit today, and I invite you to return to see us soon, and I wish you a pleasant stay in Canada and a safe journey back to your other home. Merci.
Declare the joint session adjourned.